So I'm here today to talk about the Freet Feldom. This is a great all-rounder kind of trail shoe from Freet, a UK brand. And it's because they got a good deal of grip under there and then a good deal of protection at the same time for a trail shoe. It's wide, it's also quite deep as well. So if that's something that you're looking for, then well, this could be the one for you. So we'll get into it in a bit. Hi, I'm Nick from Barefoot Run Review, and I'm passionate about foot shaped shoes, barefoot shoes, minimal shoes, whatever you want to call them. I just want to find the shoes that fit your feet correctly. So, as I said, we're talking about the Freet Feldom, and I've had the privilege of running in these quite a bit over the last few weeks, and it's been slightly refreshing, let's say that. And you may have seen my previous review on the Freet Calver. Well, this has a very similar fit with just some slight tweaks on the outsole and the upper. And that's what will really make the difference here. But first, let's talk about that fit. So very much like the rest of their line, this has a nice wide toe box, and the toe box is nicely squared off towards this front edge here on the big toe side. And for somebody like me, where the longest toe is actually the big toe, it worked really well. And also, even on this little toe side, it doesn't taper too aggressively. So you're able to get a nice splay along that little toe side at the same time. So looking for toe splay, then this could be one for you. The other part is the width. And it's not about just the width in the toe box. It is probably one of the wider options out there, but it's also about that width in the midfoot here. If you've followed me before, you've listened to one of my other reviews, you'll likely know that my midfoot is actually one of the wider parts of my foot. And that means I struggle with some other brands. And that may be you too. So you've got to think about where you actually need the width in a shoe, and that determines which shoes you go for. You have a narrower midfoot, then Ultras work great. Also, Vivo Barefoot can work really well as well. If you need that wider heel, then something like the Freet Feldom here is actually quite a good option. It's nice and wide fitting and roomy around there. It accommodates quite a lot of different heel types. At the same time, if you have a narrow heel, a slim fit heel, then you might find it a little bit harder to get a heel lock in this. And I had to kind of crank down these laces over the top here and put a lace lock in there to actually get a good lockdown. And really, the secureness came from this midfoot here rather than this heel. That's somewhere where it really differs from the Freak Calver. Another contributing factor to the fit is this upper. So this upper is it's kind of flexible, it's quite nice, but secure at the same time. And the way I can explain that is the material they use here is a really tight weave backed with, I don't know, it's just a really tight weave. And they use these overlays over the top here just to create some structure to that material. And this works really well in a trail shoe. You want to be secure in a trail shoe so you're not slipping around. And you can see, well, the depth of this shoe is super, super deep. And you can see that I've had to go very tight over the top here to actually get a great fit. Keep that in mind. It's all about the depth of this shoe. It's all about the width of this shoe. If you have a deeper foot, you have a wider foot, Free can work for you. If you're shallow, if it's narrow, then it might not work for you. Another way of actually augmenting the fit of this shoe is actually to use a different insole. So I had to actually opt for an Ultra insole here, usually around 4 or 5 mil thick, which is a little thicker than some. And this helped fill out the space a little bit in this shoe so I could actually get a better fit. I do believe that Freet do actually sell some specific insoles, which are a little bit thicker, which if you want a little less ground feel or you're wanting to fill out that shoe a little bit more, that can be a great option. The opposite way, you can actually get some thinner insoles, 2 or 3 mils thick, and you actually get a lot more depth out of the shoe and a lot more ground feel at the same time. But we'll talk about the ground feel later. Looking into this heel and ankle collar around here, it's nicely padded and it doesn't come up too high, so you won't actually find any rubbing or anything like that, which I did find in a Calver incidentally. And pairing that with the laces that you get with these nice, flat, thick laces, I think while the durability and also the fit from these, it performs pretty well in general. Okay, then what about the feel of this shoe? So the great thing about Freet in general that I found up to now is their outsoles and the different outsoles that they have. So this outsole actually has a 4 mil lug depth, which is pretty good for a trail shoe. It's also interestingly, it's not just like a chevron design. It's odd, but also, okay, let's get going again. My camera just fell over. So back to this outsole here. So this 4mm lug design, pretty cool, pretty interesting. It does well in the mud, so it actually grips fairly well with those 4mm lugs. At the same time, it actually works quite well on hard pack ground as well. And that's because this lug pattern here, it's kind of wider, flatter kind of lugs, not like the chevron design you'll see elsewhere. And this helps because you actually get more surface area that touches the ground underfoot. And it feels more like I suppose, a cushion shoe when you're on hard pack surfaces, mainly because you'll actually have 4mm lugs. You got another 3.5mm connective material here, which is still rubber in the footbed. And well, you get up to about 7.5mm. It's obviously still minimal, it's still very minimal, but at the same time, just feels like a mildly cushioned version. Now, if you pair this with the flexibility that you get because of this lugged pattern, you actually get great flexibility in between each of these spaces here, actually bends in every which direction. This is a great aspect that I've found up to now on different Freet shoes. And yeah, I love the flexibility. It allows your foot to do the job that it would do when you would run it barefoot, or put a different way. The shoe actually gets out of the way of your foot mobility and just allows the foot to do what it would when it was barefoot. So it flexes in every direction. It allows that splay. And well, it's what we kind of think of when we're thinking about a barefoot shoe or a minimal shoe, which is, well, kind of great. Getting into the aspects of where the shoe works best, well, I think he's a great all-rounder. It's not like the Calva, which has these big, thick 6mm lugs on there. The 4mm lug is still pretty deep, but at the same time, because of this surface area, like I mentioned before, it's not too deep and also feels okay on those harder packed surfaces. And it remains slightly protective as well. You get a little ground feel through this. At the same time, if you step on sharp rocks, you are protected somewhat. So it makes it a great all-rounder. If you're going to hit the mud at some point and you go into like these alpine sections with rocky terrain, it works really well. And pairing that with the flexibility and the motion that you get in this shoe, well, yeah, it's just a great all-rounder in terms of a barefoot trail shoe, which could do it all. I think it's really good. And the last contributing factor to this feel as well, again, it's talking about flexibility, and it's the upper. So this upper does actually flex around quite nicely. So as long as you get that nice fit over the top of your foot, or over the midfoot at least anyway, then you'll find that it kind of molds to your foot and it allows the foot to do what it needs to do when you're running on uneven terrain and the mobility and the movement that the foot will actually utilize. There's a small toe cap around here, which is semi-hard, I would say. Probably just enough protection, considering this outsole actually does raise up throughout the front of the shoe quite a bit, which adds quite a lot of protection. It's great if you ever end up kicking rocks like I do sometimes. Well, it gives you a little bit of protection and you don't end up bruising your toes, which is a big plus point. It wraps up around the sides of the shoe, around here as well, a little bit more protection. But at the same time, you've also got these overlays as well to protect one, your foot, but two, the materials in the upper as well. So that actually goes on to the durability aspects, which I think is worth talking about now. So yeah, durability wise, like I say, these upper materials, the overlays here will actually protect the shoe from getting any gashes, any rips, any in here. And I think it does need it because this material is interestingly flexible and soft. And I could see that if you do manage to actually nick it on anything, then it could tear through. At the same time, it's quite a smooth material. So you'd need something like branches or something like that, which would end up actually tearing it. So I'm not overly concerned there. I think it'll be okay. The outsole, obviously another area of concern usually with durability. Well, these lugs, the 4mm, you expect them to wear down quickly. So obviously don't run on the road in them. But at the same time, because they've got a bigger surface area around here, not going to wear down as quick as some other aggressive styles. So again, pretty good. It's a full rubber outsole. We don't see anything exposed here. It's like a medium soft compound. So okay for grippiness on rocks, but at the same time won't wear down too quickly as well. Again, it's all about balance. So going through this whole review, you probably hear balance, balance, balance. It's never going to excel in any area, but it actually does very well in many areas, which if you're going to buy one shoe or one barefoot shoe, well, that's what you want really. So something to think about. Back onto the durability. Well, I think the weakest part of the shoe is likely going to be this inner liner around here. So this inner liner, it's kind of semi-soft, but at the same time, the reason why I'm worried about it is because This is a wider, deeper shoe, so many people will likely have a bit of movement in there. When you have a bit of movement, it creates friction, and that friction turns into wear. And if you've ever had that before in the heel where you actually get holes there, this is likely what's happening. You've not got a good enough lockdown, and it's just created that small rubbing motion, and the friction wears a hole through the inner liner. So really, I think that's going to be the weaker part of the shoe. Otherwise, we see a nice bit of stitching around the heel here where the materials meet up against each other. Again, the same through the tongue as well. There's some stitching around the tongues. And all in all, yeah, just generally pretty good design. I haven't found any manufacturing issues like I did kind of see in the Calva. Yeah, it's been pretty good. I think it's going to go for the long run, to be honest. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I don't have any worry about busting out the sides of here, purely because we've got these higher sidewalls on the outsole, and then also these overlays here, which just overlay the high wear areas that you'd normally have issues. So again, the upper, it may be softer, it may be flexible, but at the same time, it's protected where it needs to be protected, which is great. So really, in conclusion, I'm really finding it hard to actually pick holes in the design of the shoe in general. It's a great all-rounder, as I've said before. It'll work on the mud. It'll also work on the rocky trails. It'll also work on like hard packed trails too. I think it works in loads of situations. Maybe one area it doesn't work so well is in really hot conditions, because this weave is so tight here and there's actually quite a lot of materials going on in general. Your feet are going to get a little bit hotter. And well, that's a price that you may pay for something that's going to be this protective and this durable, but it's something to keep in mind if you are in those hotter conditions. The other time is, well, it depends on your foot. So if you've got that narrow foot, you've got that shallow foot, then it's just not going to fit. It's not the right fit for you. This is really made for those wider barefoot style options that people have been yearning for, asking for. I understand that. So this is why you would go for something like the Freet Feldom. Lastly, sizing. So I went true to size-ish. If you go to the sizing guide on the Freet website, they'll actually give you some comprehensive guidance, which is pretty good. You can actually use your foot size in centimeters and find out what sizing you should go for. Normally, I'm a US 9. At Freet, that actually does translate into a EU 43. Sometimes in other brands, that translates into a 42, maybe a 42 and a half. So just go careful. Don't assume because you've worn an EU size in one brand, it's the same as another brand. It's not. There's weird conversions that goes on between European sizing and US size and UK sizing. Go to Freet's sizing guide. This is probably the best way that you're going to actually find the right size. It fits pretty true to size in length. If you're between sizes, you probably could come down in size purely because of this width and the depth. You could get away with that, I think. And then lastly, well, the price comes in at $110, which again, for this kind of shoe, that's pretty good. It's cheaper than quite a lot of other options out there. And for the quality that I've seen and the flexibility that it has, not in terms of just the flexibility, I mean flexibility in the situations you can use it in, it's a good option. It's a great option. It'll work in many situations and, well, you will only need one shoe, which is pretty cool. So that's it. If it fits you, it's a really good option.